Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 16th and tonight's movie is Murder, Death, Koreatown. Out of all the movies I'm watching this month, I think that this one is the most unusual and noteworthy because I've never seen this happen in a movie before. I have no idea about any of the people behind this. I don't know who directed it. I don't know who's starring in it. I don't know anything about that. There were no credits given out to the public. I looked on IMDb, I looked in a few other things. I couldn't find any information about who made this movie. And the movie came out this year. This isn't like a lost movie in history. This was a stylistic choice. Whoever made this made the choice to be completely anonymous. This is a found footage movie, and I think that they did that in order to add to the realism, that this is something that actually happened. There's no credits at the end saying, oh yeah, this is who directed it, this is who stars in it. I've seen found footage movies like Be My Cat, A Film for Anne, or Butterfly Kisses, where they try to blur the line between the real and the fake. And I also saw a found footage movie called Unaware that didn't credit the actors, but this is new. This is going the extra mile. This is a pretty short movie, the second shortest I'm watching this month after The Devil's Doorway. And fun fact, if you put both of those movie lengths together, it's still shorter than yesterday's movie, It Chapter 2. The trailer for this movie was incredibly vague. Apparently someone's trying to investigate a murder. I'm guessing that they're not doing this as because they're a policeman or a detective or something, so it's like a true crime type of thing. This movie is a complete wild card. I know almost nothing about it. The only thing I've heard about it is that it is good. So this is going to be very interesting. I'll go check it out. So this was definitely an interesting case. I do respect what this movie is going for, and I will say that they did a lot to make this seem real, but I almost feel like at points they were focused more on making it real feeling than making it good. I think I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It does work, but there are other movies that do this same sort of idea better. I can think of one in particular. This movie follows around some guy. His name is never given. I'm just going to call him the cameraman. And his investigation into a murder that happened in his community. Apparently he lives in Koreatown in Los Angeles. And I heard somewhere that this is based off of an actual real-life murder that happened, so that's really weird. The story that the public got told is that apparently a wife went crazy and killed her husband, but there are weird inconsistencies in the story, like blood being found really far away from the crime scene, or her arrest happening really far from where the body was found. Now, the cameraman is unemployed. I feel you, dude. But he is trying to make this movie to, I guess, have something to do. But the problem is that he's not a criminal investigator. He doesn't even have, a true crime podcast or anything. He's just a guy walking around with, I'm pretty sure, just a cell phone. I don't think I've ever seen a mock documentary with so many interviews of people who clearly don't want to be interviewed. Now, I will give this movie credit in the fact that it starts it seems like it's going one way, and I was pretty sure it was going that way, but then it took a sudden turn into another direction. However, a problem with this movie is the fact that it doesn't have much in the way of an actual horror element to it. It's more of a mystery movie that only really gets towards horror towards the very end of it. I will say that the mystery in this movie is very interesting. There's a lot of weird things that seem like they could be meaningful, but they also might not. And one thing I think I've talked about before in Horror Nights videos is that with found footage, with the medium of just the camera recording, there's not really any way to frame something. You can see someone doing something and you can't really feel like the movie is telling you to feel a certain way about it. You just have to see what's happening. So it's not really clear if you're supposed to side with the cameraman, you're supposed to side with his girlfriend who keeps telling him to drop it, if you're supposed to believe that there's something bigger behind this, or there's not. You're just watching it happening and going along for the ride. But I can't call this movie great because everything that this movie is attempting to do is stuff that I've seen done better in Butterfly Kisses, the best movie from last year's Horror Nights. That one, you got to know the characters better. It had better scares throughout the entire thing. It was interesting the way it was edited, the different storylines layering on top of each other. But this one is very what you see is what you get. It seems extremely low budget. It doesn't have any big moments when it comes to effects or anything like that. It's just sort of very basic and there. And I can respect that, but even when you compare it to like the lost footage of Leah Sullivan from earlier this year, that one also had the very realistic, you're watching something that's actually happening thing, and they managed to keep it a lot more interesting the whole time, and they had better characters in it. So even though I can respect Murder, Death, Koreatown, I can't really call it great. I'd say it is decent as a found footage movie. It aims very high, it doesn't quite get there, but it is a technical achievement that you can make a movie that's decent like this with basically nothing. And now I want to go into some spoilers. Now, I already said that with found footage it's kind of hard to frame things, but the way that but just like from the events that were being presented to me, my mind immediately went to the thing, okay, the cameraman is crazy. There's like, again, like the thing with he was unemployed, he's bored, and then he talks about like having like prophetic dreams and stuff like that, and I was thinking like, okay, these are like illusions of grandeur. And then I was thinking somewhere along the lines of, okay, maybe like he's the murderer and doesn't know it, like split personality or something like that. But then it took advantage of the whole thing with found footage in that there's a point where he hears a voice of a homeless man that he already talked to from like the sewers. And that was another thing that made him sound completely crazy. He had this really long conversation with a homeless guy who looked crazy. He looked like he was drugged. He looked like he didn't have any idea what he was talking about, but the cameraman just lapped it right up because it fed into his like paradigm of no, I'm getting to the bottom of something. I'm important. I'm special. But in a traditionally shot movie, when a character that you think is crazy is hearing voices coming up from a sewer grate, you immediately think that they're imagining it, that they're making it up. But the thing with the camera is that the camera can't see inside of his brain. Canonically, that sound is there. So that's what I meant when I said that it took a turn into like playing with my expectations, because I thought he was crazy, but you're hearing the voice from the sewer and that's the same guy, and then you don't know what to think. And the whole thing, it's very, like, convoluted, and there's a lot of missing ends and things that don't really add up. But, like, the main impression that the ending of this movie gave is that there's this garage in this neighborhood that is being watched over by this cult that's called the Pastors. And what they do is that when the pastor brings someone in the garage, they'll do a ritual, and that person will go and murder somebody. And under the guise of getting to the bottom of this case and finding answers, the cameraman was lured into the garage, and then the ritual was performed, and it ended up making him kill his girlfriend. But when he wakes up the next morning, he doesn't remember anything, and when he looks at the camera footage, there's a 1 hour gap where he has no idea what was going on. I do like the angle that they were going for with the fact that nobody believes this guy, nobody seems to be rooting for him. And once again, it reminded me of what they were doing with Butterfly Kisses, but in that one, you got to know why the character was so insistent on getting this movie out and being believed, and you see all that he put into it, and you see him getting mocked, and you feel sorry for this guy. With the cameraman in Murder, Death, Koreatown, I don't think you're supposed to really feel sorry for him, because he doesn't seem like that great of a person. He seems completely average. But then you see this happening to him, and it's all being presented to you. And the movie ends with him saying that he doesn't know what's going to happen to him. The police are hunting him down. He doesn't know what else he's going to be doing. So he's sending all this footage to somebody else, and he wants them to get the footage out. And I will say, I didn't expect them to do this because this movie doesn't have any, like, intro at all. There's no studios at all. It literally just starts the moment you hit play. But there is, like, a 3-second thing at the very end, like, saying, this is a work of fiction, all blah, blah, blah. And really, you were almost at 100%, but you just couldn't quite make it there. I would say that overall, Murder, Death, Koreatown is more interesting than it is good. I mean, yes, they turned everything up to 10 when it comes to getting the realism factor, but, like, at what cost? This movie also has, like, a really good mystery to it, and then it sort of fizzles out at the end. Like, we do get sort of an answer, but there also are a lot of loose ends. And I understand that that's sort of the point. That's what Butterfly Kisses did. There were loose ends in that story, too. But I think that overall, the whole realism factor and the thing with, like, seeing the narrator and his involvement in the story unfolding in front of him, I think those were done better in stuff like The Lost Footage of Leah Sullivan or Butterfly Kisses. If you're a found footage fan, I would recommend checking this out because I can't think of another found footage movie that's done quite like this one. But if you're a horror fan, just in general, I I wouldn't really recommend it. This is a very niche movie, and it doesn't try to appeal to a mass audience. It knows it's a very niche movie. So I'd say in that regard, take it or leave it. But I thought it was at least interesting. I'm glad I saw it. Okay, thank you all for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.